just talking to people. You know what I'm saying? It's conversations, and I'm good at that. I have a natural gift from God to be able to communicate with people and relate to people. And I learned so much from talking to people. The best thing that I ever learned in life is if you listen more than you speak, you'll always be able to understand somebody. And one thing that I learned is that we are much more alike than we are different. Just make that more complicated. Sitting on the steps, feeling no feeling. Another episode of the Live Your Purpose podcast. I'm your host, John Morgan Jr. Before we get started, I want to just send a special shout out to all of our essential employees and send prayers and condolences and love and light to anybody who has lost any family members to COVID-19. I also want to send a special rest in peace to Breonna Taylor, Sean Reed, Ahmaud Arbery, and George Floyd, and send condolences and prayers to those individuals' families who have lost their lives recently to police brutality and this systemic oppression in the country that we live in. So I want to just say, rest in peace to those individuals and prayers, condolences to their families. I also want to say thank you to everyone who has been supporting the podcast. All episodes 1 through 16 are available on all your audio platforms, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, as well as Spotify. Episodes 2 through 16 are available on YouTube, the Live Your Purpose podcast page. So please go to that page, subscribe, like, and comment. Give me your feedback, please. And thank you to everybody who has been supporting. So without further ado, man, I'm super excited for this conversation we're getting ready to have. This individual, I actually came across him from another podcast that I really enjoy, Earn Your Leisure. Shout out to those guys, man, Troy and Rashad, man. They doing their thing, they killing it. I actually came across this individual story on their platform, and as soon as I got the alert, I was glued to it, and I love this story. I loved what he was talking about, and he's a special individual that I want to continue to try to highlight on our end. So without further ado, we're going to get into Mr. David McCullar. He is the CEO and founder of Inception, which is the first ever mental health gym located in Farmington Hills, Michigan, and Los Angeles, California. David, what's up with you, man? How you feeling? Thanks for coming on.
Hey, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man. No problem. So listen, man, how are you? How was your spirit? How was your mental health doing, man? We are in a pandemic. There's a lot of heightened trauma that we are seeing, with these recent killings and everything going on. How are you? How was your spirit?
I'm uplifted, man.
Yeah.
And I'm an optimist, first of all. So, but going through this, definitely I've gone through my ups and downs emotionally. We've seen a lot of death here in Detroit and in Michigan. People I know, people, friends of mine, passed away. So it's been numbing kind of going through it at the same time too, because it really looks like there's no end in sight for it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I'm just trying to find certainty in the uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been able to find pockets of that,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm doing really good though. Family's good. Family's healthy. Mother and father's healthy. So I'm doing well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's actually interesting that you said, finding pockets. In my own just process of healing, I'm starting to really understand the importance of present moments and, taking advantage of being present. That is where happiness has been found to be located.
When you speak in my language, brother, that's
listen, man. That's why I said this was a perfect fit, man. That's why I was so persistent in getting you on, man. I knew, we was gonna enjoy one another's, time, man. So I'm so glad to have you here, man. So yeah.
So I wish I had my board down here where I get these insights, where I call them downloads, because I don't think that creativity is exclusive to anybody. Like, I think that we pick up creativity just the same way your phone picks up the cell phone reception, right? And you download information. I believe we do the same thing. So I get these downloads or these insights. And one day I just had this insight that the present moment is actually its own separate dimension.
Mm-hmm.
It's a dimension of reality that exists.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's really, we talked about past, present, future. And most people live in past or future. But the present moment, man, it literally is its own dimension. And when you go there and you really calm down into it and relax into it, you like, wow, man, life is actually really great.
Right.
It's
Right.
it's outside influences, man, that keep you in outside of that dimension.
That's right.
You know, and that's where we get so much anxiety and so much depression, because our mind is split between those two dimensions versus the one dimension that is really, because at this moment, this present moment, if I'm purely in this present moment, as you know, right now, if there's no threat in front of me, there's nothing wrong. Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's what we talked too about Inception, in terms of you was talking about, off air, about the movie, and in that movie it's really about conditioning.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, and that's something that's a whole nother conversation we can go down, but like the conditioning to keep you out of the present moment for a specific reason is very interesting, to say the least.
Absolutely, yeah. See, we gonna get into it a little bit. Listen, before we even get into there, man, I wanna touch on your story a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You're originally from Detroit, man. Tell me what life was like growing up for you, man, in Detroit, man. What's some of the earliest memories that you had just being a youngster in Detroit?
Man, that is a foundation for who I am. Is growing up in Detroit, great neighborhood inside of Detroit, off of 8 Mile. Like, because people hear things and they would think, oh, Detroit had to be a horrible place. And it's like, no, Detroit is amazing, man. And I had an amazing upbringing. And like I said, inner city Detroit. Earliest memories is just us playing basketball all day, man. We couldn't wait to the weather broke just a little bit.
Yeah.
Not even a lot, man. If it's 50 degrees outside, that's hooping weather, as we got. That's hooping weather.
All day.
That 45, 50 degrees, man, that's hooping weather. We used to shovel the snow, man, to ball. It's just, and we used to always go to each other's houses, like, oh, so-and-so's around the block playing ball. Let's go over there. Or, other earliest memories, my dad was into technology like me. He's a futuristic type of guy. And I remember we saw the movie The Wizard. I don't know how old you are, but this is maybe outside your time frame. But this movie, The Wizard.
I'm 31.
Yeah, you may didn't see that movie, but yeah, in this movie they had the Nintendo the Power Glove is what it was called, man.
I remember that though. I remember the Nintendo Power Glove.
We went and saw the movie The Wizard, and they had the game Rad Racer. They're playing it with the Power Glove, and when we left the movie, my dad was like, "Let's go to Toys R Us." And we went to Toys R Us, and we got that Power Glove, man. Like so, I remember just stuff like that, man. Just growing up in the 80s, and I had a fun time, man. So my experience in Detroit was amazing, and that's the foundational of who I am, really.
Wonderful, man. Wonderful. You just touched on a little bit, man. Your upbringing in Detroit is the foundation of who you are. You ultimately, began to be an entrepreneur today. Looking back on it, who were some of your entrepreneurial influences that you can kind of like look back on and say, man, I didn't know it then, but that individual definitely like stood out to me. Is there anybody that you can kind of point to?
No, I didn't know any entrepreneurs, man, other than my dad. And my dad was his own self-employed entrepreneur, but he actually worked with GM for 30 years too. Mm-hmm. So, he's more of a hustling entrepreneur than like I own these businesses that are, raising money and things of that nature. Like I didn't have any of that type of influence growing up. And to this day, I really, it's interesting. I don't have any business mentors or anything like that. Like, I did have one. I would say I did have someone who came in and started kind of helping me some, but for the most part, I've been like trial and error with my whole journey. Yeah. Which I know going back when I was 9, 10 years old, my dad asked me what I want to do, like growing up, and I told him, I said, I know one thing. I don't want anybody telling me what to do. He said, it sounds like you want to be an entrepreneur. Then I said, that's what I want to do, because we had a landscaping company early on, so. By the time I was 10, 11 years old, I was out there with my dad You know, in the summers, like kids would be playing around, and I was out with my dad, you know, doing lawns with him, you know.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, for those who may not know, you're from Michigan. I'm from Ohio, man. The Midwest is like home and staple to the automotive industry. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so when you spoke about your father working for GM, I can go down a list of individuals who have worked for the automotive industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Our whole family, my
Everybody,
grandfather, my
yes,
grandmother,
yes,
like
yes,
that's why we moved here. You know,
yes,
that's why
yes.
people migrated to the north to get these jobs. And
That's
we
right.
had, you had those factory jobs. You can come straight out of high school, like my dad did, and work for 30 years for
Yep,
one company.
yep.
You know, and there's people still here that can get hired into the plant. You know, they still hire people in. So um but the interesting thing, I don't know about you, but I never saw myself going into that. like
Listen, man. Listen, never. First off, I was big into sports, so I was,
mm,
I was like, plenty other black boys, man, in America. I was hoping.
football, basketball, which one?
I played basketball the majority of my life. I did play
Okay.
football up until ninth grade. I quit. I didn't like my coach, and frankly, to be completely honest, I wasn't committed to football like that. After a
Yeah.
while, I was tired of getting hit, and I was tired of getting hurt.
Hmm.
Like, nah, this ain't it.
That's how I was with basketball. Man, that's my first love, basketball. But you know, you get to a point where you enjoy it and you love it, but I don't love it to go all the way that you had to go all the way in terms of how much people had to practice and things of that nature. You know, it's like that love didn't go that far, you know, but it went enough to be always looking at it, you
Yeah,
know, but yeah, so yeah, I think that's growing up for every young black kid. That's interesting. Again, like this is what we're being shown of who
mm-hmm.
we can be, and but it's so much more to that. Just think of growing up, we had black entrepreneurs showing us and them looking as athletes, and really athletes are now turning to be that. So they kind of becoming. They've always been entrepreneurs. They're really just contractors,
Yeah,
you know. And they should
yeah.
create their own business around their own brand, which they've been doing. So yeah, we all had, the black kids. We all had that same hoop dream,
That's right.
football dream, rap dream.
Yep, yep, yep.
And then you get to about that 16, 17 stage, and you realize if you ain't got no letters going to college for that,
Right. Yeah, it's
you
a
gotta
wrap.
find something else to do.
That's right. That's right. And my mother was big on, listen, if you don't go to school to play sports and you don't go to school for free, listen, man, you got to get you a job. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Period, point blank. And I'm like, well, Mom, I ain't trying to go to Chrysler. So
Right.
I had to figure it out. Luckily for me, man, I was able to land on my feet. I was able to get my degree in social work, which
Okay, so that's your background, social work.
yep. My background is in social work, which landed me to working for a community mental health organization here in the city of Akron, which is
Okay.
really kind of like really what started my journey down mental health.
Mm.
I married a psychologist, and she has just,
Okay.
yes. So she has been able to educate me tremendously, into the world of not just mental health, but specifically mental health as it relates to Black people and African Americans,
Right.
and trauma specifically. So that's my background. So going forward a little bit, man, I just said that key word, trauma. When I listen to you on Earn Your Leisure, you said that word a lot, and I just had somebody on my podcast last week, was a psychologist here in the area, and I'm real big on the word trauma and what that looks like,
Mm-hmm.
because, and you said this as well, which I thought was just so key and so important. A lot of times when we think of trauma, we automatically go to the most extreme.
Right.
Trauma looks like, it can look like violence, it can look like anything, or when our life is threatened. Those are some of the most extreme forms. But in my
I can fall out this chair right now and be traumatized.
yes, yes,
It's like it's not
yes,
like it's gunshots and war. That's the idea. And when we talk about mental health, we always go back to the auntie who's schizophrenic in the closet somewhere, that we're hiding. Like
right,
we go to all these extremes of it. Like that is when you think about health, you don't immediately think about somebody with, the worst disease.
right,
When you
right.
think about fitness, you don't think about the most obese person. Why don't we think about the most mentally healthy or physically healthy person. We always go to the extreme of it, which I find to be um purposely done in a sense, where people stay away from it when they think about it in that way, like, oh, there's that crazy person over there.
Right.
It's like, look, what are you talking about? Like, we all have on the spectrum of mental health.
Right.
And when we talk about trauma too, it's like the word itself, what does it mean? Like, what does it have to do with my brain and my body? And that's what I really got an education in, is understanding that trauma is a nervous system issue, period.
Mm-hmm.
It's an activation of our sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system that's
Right.
going to respond to a threat.
Yes.
That's instinctual, has nothing to do with our conscious participation. And so when you look at it from that aspect, looking at it of systems versus symptoms, then you can get to root causes versus chasing after every single leaf that blows off the tree. I'm going straight to the root.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like to say that trauma is not necessarily the act that is happening. It is the way that our body responds.
That's why I tell people it's not stress.
Yep.
We're talking about stress. What is the stress response?
Yep.
People don't understand that your body is being broken down from constantly being in a state of hypervigilance, either overwhelm or underwhelm, and that gas or that break. And anytime you have too much of gas going on, you got an issue. If you got too much of the braking going on, you got an issue. And so these symptoms that pop up is really just the root cause of it, is because of the brain and the body is just still stuck in that pattern.
Yeah.
And it's using all of our resources towards protection.
Yeah.
And it is like, hey, John, I need you to do 5 + 5. Well, wait, my brain is still locked down into hearing gunshots yesterday. Like, it's still I'm anxious. I can't use. So we don't understand that 30% of our brain capacity in terms of our neocortex and processing is just like diminished.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, so in school, like, no, you're not paying attention in school when there's threats in school too. If that kid across that, way bullied you, you're not really even present.
Yeah.
Back to that present word again, right?
That's right. 100%. Looking back on it, man, what were some of your earliest traumatic experiences, if you were able to point back to some?
I would say my first traumatic experience I remember was graduating from kindergarten.
Wow.
And having to go up on stage to get my award, and I didn't want to go up on stage. And I remember I ran off stage, and my dad came chasing me, came in the bathroom, hey, go on that stage. And I was like, no, I was so scared. I don't know what I was scared at. Again, I'm like, I don't know how old you are in kindergarten, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm not in my right. I'm not in a conscious mind. First of all, I'm not even in a developed mind, because I'm only 4 or 5 years old. But I remember that moment feeling anxious about being up there in front of all these people, so that was one. And think about that. That again, that's so small.
Listen,
right?
when you just said that, I got a flashback myself. That is so crazy that you just said that. Looking back on it, I think one of my first traumatic experiences was I was about 4 or 5 years old. We had a mall here in Akron called Rolling Acres Mall. And my dad, he was always trying to get me to go down this escalator by myself. And I never wanted to go. One day, him and my mother got down the escalator and they left me and just went down. And I never forget the way he looked at me. He was like, come on. And I was stuck and just started crying. And wow. I'll never forget that to the rest of the day I live. And knowing what I know today, and I never even thought about that as being traumatic until you just said that. But
now that I said that one, that wasn't even the first one. That was okay. To go back to the first one. The first one was that I can remember going to preschool for the first time. So going to preschool the first time, my dad's going to drop me off, and I spent a lot of time with my dad early on because my mom worked during the evenings, and he was home during the mornings because he worked. Well, she worked morning, he worked evening, so I would be with him. And when you he's taking me to school for the first time, I'm like, where are you going? He's like, no, you got to go in there, whatever. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Again, this is me processing it out. Well, who are these people? Like, I don't know who are these people, and then you leave me in this situation that's uncertain for me and my brain. And I remember just crying, and my dad's like, you know, if you grew up with a black dad, he's like, they trying to whoop you for being like
Oh man.
adversarial to
Oh man.
adversarial to your fear.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, so I remember that, like, and so I think that probably caused separation anxiety for me.
Hmm.
You know, and a lot of kids go through separation anxiety when they have to go to school for the first time. And those are some of our biggest traumas right there. And so as we get older too in relationships, I think that we often try to heal our wounds based on those first experiences of our parents leaving us or something of that nature. Like it's your brain is still processing that event. Like, where's the threat? Anything that can remind you of that. So you get in a relationship and somebody pulls back just a little bit, you're like, where you going? What are you doing? You know, it's like, no, that's your brain reacting, you know. And
See, this is what's beautiful about these type of conversations, because here we are, we're talking about this, and you said one, I said one, you said one. Now I just thought about another traumatic experiences when I was 5 or 6 years old, getting on the bus for the first time. Oh, I did not want to get on that bus. Now, luckily, there were some older kids who knew my older sister, and they like took me in right then and there. But I can remember getting on that bus crying. I'm talking about crying, hard tears. My mom was like, dude, get on the bus. Like, you gone to school before, get on the bus. And that, it just killed me. But this is the beauty about having these type of conversations, because here we are, can laugh about it now, just being a little bit, educated on it. But these are everyday things that happen all day, man.
right.
So it's such a beauty that we're having this conversation.
And it's important for us to have this conversation because now as people begin to hear it, as people become parents now, they can understand and need to be trauma informed for to be able to in conscious parenting and
Yes.
raising their kids and understand like trauma. Now that I've gone through it and experienced it and done a lot of work surrounding it for myself and others, there's nothing wrong with trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Trauma is just is going to be a part of life. It's a life experience.
That's right.
You know what the issue is? When we can't regulate after the fact.
That's right.
And now that those experiences that we experience, when they start to compile and compound, when they're compounding over time, what happens when you get in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, you know, you have a backlog of all of that. That's like, hey man, you put stuff down at the garbage disposal and you thought you was cutting it up and it was going down there, but not really. It wasn't really going all the way down there. Right now it's compacted onto the pipes of the, the drain, and all of a sudden now it's clogged. Not all of a sudden. We always do that, right? All of a sudden I had XYZ. No, it wasn't all of a sudden. You merely adapted to that until the adaptation could no longer adapt at the same rate anymore.
Yeah. And when you talk about the Black experience, we are traumatized constantly, all day, every day, in any capacity, whether that is at home with our families, in the work environment, in school, no matter where it is, outside in just society, through social media now, we are constantly traumatized. And I was listening to you on a live, I want to say maybe a week or two ago, and you said a statement, man, that stood out to me, and I wanted you to kind of speak to it. You said that our trauma has been weaponized. Speak to me a little bit about what you were referring to and how you are seeing it being weaponized.
Yeah, man. I nowadays I'm like, yo,
we here
since we fighting the power and shit,
yeah, go ahead, get to it.
I might as well fight the power.
That's a fact.
First of all, just hearing the story about Emmett Till as a young person, do you know what that does to you? Ooh. when you're maybe fourth grade, maybe I heard about that then, fourth, fifth grade, and learning about that and seeing it. They had a screen, they had us watch this video, and I remember seeing those images, and you start to learn that you're not safe. Like little droplets of information that you're not safe, to the point where I thought about this earlier. My mom didn't want me to have back in the 80s, there was laser tag and photon. Those are big things that came out with the laser guns and stuff. Mm-hmm. She didn't want me to get one because she didn't want the police to end up shooting me.
Yeah.
I'm 40.
Right.
Like So I couldn't process that as a kid, you know. So the reason why I'm saying these things is because it's being weaponized by us too, not knowing that we're doing this. Because even right now, with what's happening right now is we're seeing us, and we've always seen it, and we've see it more now with the video and all that, like on a mass scale. It's like, guys, don't show that to your kids.
Right.
Do not tell that narrative to your kids. Right. I don't care how true it is, because one thing's for certain. For all the people who have experienced maybe that, there's a whole group who haven't experienced that.
Right.
So now you're trying to make everybody experience that. It's just this. We need to understand this. One of us going through it is enough, period. Okay. Mm-hmm. But don't keep watching it, because once you understand neuropsychology and understanding how your brain, again, we talking about conditioning. When 9/11 happened, my mom said, watch it once, turn it off. Watch it once, turn it off. And I watched it once and I turned it off. And in this instance with what just happened, I didn't watch it.
Neither did I.
I didn't watch any of them. The Aubrey, I didn't watch that either, because I'm like, listen, I don't need to watch it to know that it's real, that it's a real experience for somebody, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
But when you keep passing that video and sharing it, that right there alone is traumatic for all of us. And that's on a bigger scale too, you know. But so weaponized trauma is, again, constantly showing you images of us on the news in bad situations.
And it's infiltrated its way into entertainment. So now, you know, traumatizing can be entertaining to you. A few months ago, there was a movie that came out, Queen and Slim. I'm not sure if you've seen it.
No,
so I won't tell.
I'm not going to see it because here's the thing about movies. Like, one, I don't want to watch slave movies anymore.
No, that's over.
I've seen enough, man.
Yep.
And I don't want to watch movies with the whole, you know, us being victimized. I don't want to watch anything with us being victimized anymore. We've seen enough of that shit.
So check this out. You 100% right, man. And that's why at first, like, I'm like, you know what? I'm the same way. I don't want to see any more slave movies. I don't want to see anything of us being victimized, any of that. So in Queen and Slim, they kill a police officer and they go on the run, right? Mm-hmm. And really, it's an amazing movie. It's artistically shot well, very eclectic, and they show Black people visually in a very just powerful, powerful way. The majority of the movie, literally the end of the movie, the last 45 seconds of the movie, both the main characters both get killed. And I mean, it's like highlighted the way that they are killed. And then the movie ends. I was pissed. And I really had a real reaction to it. And I told my wife, I said, man, I never want to see our trauma and us be victimized in a way that's supposed to be entertaining to me. I live that every day. You know, right. that can never be something that I want to spend my money on.
And that's what I tell people all the time. Like, I don't watch scary movies. I have enough fear in my life to deal with and combat. Why do I want to pay to add to it?
To get scared.
So, like, I'm a sci-fi guy. I'm into I'm into movies that are mind bending.
Right.
Like, break us free. That's me, right?
Inception, bro.
Inception. Right. Through my lenses, and I'm into like hero. The hero's journey. Where is us overcoming something? That's what Black Panther was. Everybody had their opinions on it, but that was a dope movie. It's like, okay, see us overcome and see us and just powerful circumstances.
Right. So show me the shit that y'all don't want to show the rest of the world. I don't care if it's not real. I want to see some stuff where we are highlighted in a way where we are powerful. We are in a place of freedom. We are in a place of just being able to rule things. Like, show us in that light. I'm not.
And two, don't show us stuff where it's some white person coming to save us.
Yeah, man, the white savior shit.
It's like I don't want that. I mean, Black Panther had a little bit of that in there.
A little bit. It was,
but he still he still saved him.
Yes. Yes.
T'Challa saved him.
Right. That's a
Okay,
fact.
so that was cool. But some of these other movies, like what they did with Hancock with Will Smith, he was an alcoholic, and then it took this white dude to come to rehabilitate him, and
Yeah, I'm
save
cool
him,
on that. Yeah, I'm
and
cool.
then he was the white angel was his wife, it's just like, okay, so
Cool.
we want to see better imagery, because what I start to understand is that everything that we see, we're programmed by. We're
Yes.
conditioning to. Branding is nothing but another word for programming or conditioning.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Right. So I want to see, I literally have to sit there, and we do this with everything. Oh, what do I want? What do I feel like eating? What do I feel like watching? What do I feel like wearing? Everything we do is based on feeling. So since I understand, that's like, look, I want to watch stuff that I feel empowered by, to get up and go and do and overcome, not stuff that just keeps me in that same victimization or traumatized, state of being.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard you say also, and you spoke to this, you said that you were in some car accidents and started having panic attacks as you got a little bit older. Did those happen like when you were in high school, you a little bit older?
No, I didn't. I'm sure I had anxiety. I remember. So now some stuff backtrack that I may say that you may remember for yourself is that I remember I used to chew my shirt. Like I just chew. And I saw it one day. I had a client sitting in one of my chairs, little kid, and he was sitting there just chewing his shirt, and it was
Wow.
soaked.
Wow.
And I was like, it just flashed back to me like, holy crap, I used to do that. I used to take ice and just chew ice. I used to chew pin tops. It's because I had so much anxiety wrapped up in me that I'm trying to dissipate it in some way. And that's the way I'm trying to dissipate it. I don't know that as a kid, but that's what is happening. And so as I get older, once you start to have physical injuries compounded onto the mental emotional thing, that's when your body becomes so tight and tense that things can't move anymore. Right. And you become stuck in that pattern. So it wasn't until I was like 21 when I start having like, full blown anxiety. And I think I had my first panic attack when I was like 21. But I went to the hospital and everything, and they gave me Prevacid and Regulin, never once asked me, and I had no idea or understanding how that should typically go. But now I'm looking at that like, they treat everything from a physical standpoint alone when your mental drives your physical.
Right.
Mental emotional drives your entire existence. So
Absolutely.
where's the conversation around everything else that's happening in my life? And I think so hospitals are really behind.
Oh, absolutely. COVID exposed that.
Yeah, hospitals are behind on many different fronts, but they really aren't behind because they were designed to be the way that they are.
Correct. Now, what was your support system like at this time, man, when you start having panic attacks and and your anxiety is really starting to like really show itself physically? What was your support system like? What were your friends, your family? What were they saying to you at this time?
My friends didn't really know. Some of them knew, but they didn't. It's just something you kind of like, well, what's wrong with you? Type
Right.
of thing,
Right.
Parents, my mom's a social worker too. So
I didn't know that.
yeah, 20 years social worker, MSW, LMSW. Yeah.
Okay, she got all the credentials. All right.
Yeah. So my dad too. My dad, he's not a social worker, but he was very supportive, because when I was having those panic attacks, I was living in South Florida at that time, and it got to the point where I just threw up the red flag, and I knew it. It has to be bad when I moved back from South Florida, it's sunny, and I moved back to Michigan, right? So I love home, but it wasn't, South Florida weather and culture. So I moved back here, and me and my dad, again, he was that guy who said, let's go get that power glove, right? From early on, he's in that futuristic techie mindset. And when I showed him one of our first services that I felt like could help me and can be a good business opportunity, I said, which is called neurofeedback, or called brain training. So we went out to Arizona, and we used that first technology that helped me overcome anxiety. It really reduced my anxiety by 50% in just one day. And that's pretty unheard of in your traditional, route of how to deal with like anxiety and panic attacks. So
Why didn't you go to therapy?
I didn't want to. I didn't believe that was the route for me at that point in time based on the information I had in 2007. Because I looked at it as a standpoint of, because I understood neuroplasticity and the brain changing itself. I said something's going on in my brain and I need to try to figure out what's happening. Why is my brain doing this? Because my brain didn't always do this. This was my own rationale. Now, mind you, my background is in information technology. So I'm looking at myself as a computer. I'm troubleshooting myself. And I always troubleshoot myself. Like I'm always, your symptoms is just your body's language speaking to you. And so at that point in time, that's what I did. Now looking back, I probably would have went to therapy starting off, and my mom is, again, she is a therapist, right? But she told me one day, she said, I said, I don't care about shaving. I don't care about doing this. I don't care about doing that. She said, David, you sound like you're depressed. I said, well, let me be depressed. Because I was always the optimist. And at that moment in time, I just felt like I just need to be sad. I read all the self-help books and all that stuff. So I'm like, okay, well, I just want to be I don't feel good right now. And just let me not feel good right now, So that's why I didn't go to therapy now. But if you combine therapy to everything that we do, you're gonna slice through a lot of that a lot quicker, because you're gonna be able to process through the stuff that begins to surface for you. And we can talk about that too and what that means in regards to things surfacing.
Yeah. What is the neuroplasticity? What is that? You just spoke to that a little bit. What is that?
Neuroplasticity is a term that is basically about your brain being flexible or pliable or basically being able to create new pathways, because we've been taught that, you can't teach your old dog new tricks. And that's been a conditioning for us to think that we are like dogs, like we can't learn new behaviors. But that's not the truth. We can create new neural pathways all the time, just by going into new environments and practicing new behaviors and habits. The problem is we typically just like to stay in what we're familiar with.
Yeah. It's comfortable. It's easy.
Yeah, it's easy.
Yeah.
It feels good.
Right. Absolutely. It's safe.
I was about to say it feels safe. You know what? I walk around since we've been in this COVID, I started walking around my neighborhood when the weather broke. I was walking 10 miles a day. So every day I walk out, I'll go to the right. And then one day I said, let me go to the left. When I went to the left, I instantly felt my brain like, wait, where you going? What you doing? Wow. Like literally my brain's like, no, you go to the right. We know the right. We don't know the left. So this is how our brain works. It's a pattern recognition machine. All it cares about is one, safety. Are you alive? Right. That's number one, right? We're trying to keep you safe, John. We don't care if you can sleep at night. We don't care if you can walk. Right. You've seen people who had a stroke and they can't walk anymore. You breathing, you're alive, right? We doing all this for your survival. So when it comes to like, people are creatures of habit. Like we like familiarity, even though something can be painful for you or bad to you, but because you're familiar to it, you won't move to anything different.
Right.
There was nothing bad about me going to the left of walking. It was just the simple fact that my brain was used to the other way. Man, so the same thing again. Okay, McDonald's changed their fries. People will go up in an uproar if the fries could literally be better. But because you've had those fries for a certain amount of time, they changed the fries. Change, man. We don't really like change.
Why are we so afraid of change, man?
I just think it's a feeling thing. I think it's how we feel. It's like when we feel, we have associations to things that we do, right? And when you go do something new, there's no association to it. There's no certainty. It's all certainty.
But see, on the flip side, and I'll speak from my own experience, on the flip side of that is, man, like I've been going to therapy for like the last 2 years regularly. Okay. And the best part of going to therapy has been being able to unlearn things and learn new things. Now,
Mm-hmm.
granted, it has been tough. You know, there's been some moments of resistance, but unlearning those things that I thought I depended on so much and learning new things has been the most liberating feeling that I've ever had. So it's just so ironic that we fight change so much, but that change is what builds us up, man. That's what liberates us. That's what frees us up. So it's so
Absolutely.
ironic that that's that is the process of life, so to speak.
Yeah. And when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change itself, that's when you'll change.
Right.
When the pain becomes greater, than staying the same, it has to become greater than that.
Ooh.
It's only pain that moves us. Hardcore trauma situations for us moves us rock bottom. And that was one thing I said, I don't know if Black people, I don't know if we got a bottom.
Mm.
I don't know if we had a bottom.
Mm.
And it seemed like seeing that on tape for people, that was their bottom. But that pain that we're feeling is a collective pain of all the stuff we're going through, not just, this is our moms, our dads, stuff that we dealt with in childhood. Just like when Nipsey passed away, I said, that ain't for Nipsey. Y'all think y'all grieving Nipsey, but y'all don't know Nipsey. Some of y'all are grieving him, but y'all don't know Nipsey. You
That's
grieving
right.
your cousin, you grieving your, whoever you didn't grieve.
That's right.
Same thing what happened when Tupac died, for us. It was just like because we see ourselves
Right.
as these people.
Yeah. Yeah. I said that to my therapist a few weeks ago, man, when Ahmaud Arbery had passed away. I said, man, I'm having these feelings and I didn't even know him. She stopped me. She said, no, you are him.
Right.
And that was so profound. And I was like, you absolutely right.
Because you instantly, with what we call mirror neurons or empathy neurons, we put ourselves in each other's situation. So when Kobe passed away, all of us said, grab your loved ones.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, but what does that got to do with Kobe? Kobe died. Grab your loved ones. It's because we instantly was like, holy crap. We instantly saw us having a daughter or, somebody in our, family dying or us dying like that. And it's just like, it challenges our mortality, and we just don't understand that everything we see, we do process.
That's a fact, man. There is a psychological impact on everything that we do, whether we understand that or not. That is a true fact. Listen, in 2005, you started your first business. I believe that's the one you started with your father.
Yeah,
and
07.
07, and then Inception ended up coming after that. Now, why?
Yeah.
Go ahead. I was just going. I want to know, what was it about the gym in Inception being a gym itself? What was it about that you said, okay, I want to run with that?
Well, so our first business with just the brain training alone, one service we had, our business was called Neuro Fitness Center. So it was already a brain gym. Neuro meaning the brain. And so it's brain fitness. So as I grew and added other services, because I understood that my clients need more than brain training, because I started seeing it for the bigger picture, brain, body, because the body bears the burden and the issues are in the tissues. So brain training alone was working with our nervous system and getting our nervous system to relax and calm down. And it helps with some, body pains too, because the nervous system is more regulated. But what do we do about the muscles of the body that are still locked? And so that's when we added flotation therapy in 2014. I added a magnetic therapy. And I added some other services too along the way. They didn't make the cut towards Inception because I needed a model that really worked synergistically with each other. So in 2016, I had all this. Before 2016, I had all this technology in under one roof, 1,600 square feet. I mean, I had technologies crammed into rooms, man. Like it was so. In 2016, I found I got partnered up with an investor, and we opened up my full concept model. Every technology has a room for itself. I created my own look for everything, and that's where Inception was born. And then along the way of that too, even though I moved away from Neuro Fitness Center, it was kind of finding out who are we? Like before I had an identity, I was like brain fitness. Well, who are we now with all this other stuff? And I said, I think it's time for us to stop hiding what we do, even though I never really realized I was working in mental health. I just, was helping people. I didn't think of it as mental health or anything. It just, this is health. So, but then I said, you know what? We're going to call it out and we're going to be a mental health gym.
You stood on it.
Yeah, I stood on it. And when I did that, the identity connected to Inception that made it very powerful. Yeah. People were really able to connect to it too, because my thought process on it was like, well, people go to the physical gym all day. Like, where's the mental gym? Yeah. That's like a mental health gym. So when the people hear gym, they think of, treadmills and, workout equipment and all this. Well, this is an inner workout, but it's different from when you go to the gym. You're creating tension when you go to the gym. Mm-hmm. When you go to the traditional gym, when you come to the mental health gym, you're doing the very opposite of what you're doing there. Mm-hmm. This is anti-tension. This is tension release, and when you can do that. So for instance, I say you're going to therapy and everything, and that's great, right? You're working with a lot of psychological issues, but the issues are mainly neurophysiological. Because again, if you think about something, your body responds to it, right? So where is the residual information stored? It's in your brain and your body. So we got to deal with that. So we deal with that in a bi-directional way by using all these synergistic tools. And the great thing is a person can come through the door and don't need to know anything about the tools. They just need to know that where you are and then where you're trying to go to. Yeah. We can help you kind of get there,
Yeah. Now, listen, I want you to break down the 4 phases that you have at Inception. But before you even get there, just talk to me a little bit about the name. We spoke a little bit prior to starting this. Like, where did the name Inception come from? And like, how much correlation does it actually have to the movie Inception, if any?
So in 2014, we had, I was one of the first people that started doing flotation therapy in Metro Detroit. And had it with my other services. And I was busy, man. And I had people who were interested in it coming and saying, oh man, this is amazing. We need to put this blah, 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 blah. And so this group came in with Dan Gilbert. I actually knew Dan. Dan Gilbert, owner of Cleveland Cavaliers, right? So he's from Detroit. Mm-hmm. And so a team of his came in and said, oh man, we want to get this downtown. And they said, but we got to change the name, though, because Neuro Fitness Center sounds like something my grandma goes to. And I was like, what? I kind of got offended for a second. Like, what? And so, but I'm someone who's like this. Like, I don't resist change to that degree. I'm like, I look at it as it's an opportunity to do something new. Like, I get to be creative again. So I'm like, okay. She's saying, we need something hip. We need something cool. So my dad is like, let's call it the Matrix. And so I'm like, yeah, but I'm like, no. I don't want to do Matrix. Even though Matrix is like my favorite movie, I'm still like, nah, no, Matrix.
Fantastic.
And then I was like, you know what? We're gonna call it Inception. Because Inception was like, to me, Matrix and Inception are tied neck and neck for me.
Whoa, time out. As far as the actual movie?
Just the impact that it had on me.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
The impact that it had on me in terms of like understanding the mind and so that like when I saw that movie, I'm like, holy crap, what did I just watch, man? Like, I want that feeling, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I said let's call it the Inception. And then at first I was thinking like, can I get sued for this? Like but I can get sued if I start adding in all the references from the movie and using imagery. And I was like, no, if you just look up the word Inception in the dictionary, it's like the beginning of something new. So it went along with that regardless. Okay, and so that's really where that stemmed from. So And the more I dig deeper into the mind, I'm like, man, Inception is the perfect name. Like people are really coming in and being able to really reprogram themselves. Like I said, that's really what you're doing in therapy, is that therapist is acting as a mirror for you to become aware of yourself so that you can remove your conditioning and become awake to who you are.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, like I said, when I was watching that movie, I'm like, it has to be some type of correlation here, because for those who haven't seen the movie, with Leonardo DiCaprio, and they are like he is working for espionage and as working as spies to like steal things from people's dreams. It's a crazy movie, but it's fantastic. And when I seen it, I'm like, oh, this has to be some type of connection to the gym itself. So talk to me a little bit about these 4 phases, man. Break them down. I know the first one is the brainwave optimization. Like, talk to me a little bit about each phase, if you can.
So, okay. So what we've done now, and the website is totally being revamped as we speak. And so we moved away from really individualized services.
Oh, okay.
What we did was we created 2 circuits. And one is called Total Life Reset. The other one's called Total Body Reset. Now, the Total Life Reset circuit is the brain body balance circuit. And what that's using is our top 3 services, and you're doing those in a 90-minute time frame. So you can get all of those services in one 90-minute sitting, and that's going to work with the brain and body synergistically. Like I said, that bi-directional approach. Everybody who comes through the door, I don't care what symptom you come in with, everybody comes in with symptoms. I got this. Will it work with this? Will it work with that? And it doesn't matter about the symptoms. It's about the systems of the body that are out of balance. So our services, like the brain training, that's what we started with. That's my first love. So that right there really helps the central nervous system, autonomic nervous system, to regulate. And this is the thing that engages you to go into the stress response or the trauma response, is fight, flight, freeze. And when you're stuck in this pattern after the event is over, now you can't sleep at night. Now you have anxiety. Now you got depression. Now you can go list on and on. And Dr. Dr. Robert Scare, who's a neurologist, highly in the field of respected in the field of traumatology, he said basically all our symptoms that are coming out is because of trauma. It's all trauma-based symptoms. Now, everybody else, there's other people who say, like Linus Pauling would say, it's mineral deficiency, or Dr. Sabi would say it's mucus. And it's like, no, those are all just, again, those aren't causality. That's reaction, the same way when people say chemical imbalance, but that's not the cause.
Right.
There's no real peer-reviewed study that can ever show you a chemical imbalance. There's no such thing. That's why they don't even check your brain for the chemical imbalance. No psychiatrist goes and looks at your brain and says, take this pill. They say, hey, let me do this questionnaire, and here you go. Here's these pills. So these pills alter my brain chemistry, right? Yeah, but you never looked at my brain. But if I break my arm, what do? Do an x-ray, right? So the issues are symptoms of the systems of the body. The symptoms are just a direct result of the systems being out of balance. So these circuits, the brain body balance, is a second circuit that basically helps the body to detoxify. Because what we find is that, again, mental health is not just mental.
Right.
If your lymphatic system is congested, which is the sewer system of your body, think about this. If you for the next 5 weeks don't take the trash out, right? Eventually it's gonna overflow, start smelling there, and guess what? You won't even know that your mental faculties will start to diminish. Your state of being will start to diminish based on having old trash in the house and you smelling stuff, toxicity happening. Just think from your drinking water. If you're drinking water that has tons of microplastics in it, soaps, pharmaceuticals, that's all that stuff is endocrine disruptors because it's synthetic estrogen. So you don't even know your mood is altered from just your drinking water and your air quality. So it's not just psychological.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we always just think about it from a psychological aspect. And Inception, we're looking at you as a whole being and saying, okay, all of these systems are out of whack based on all these things. It's not just, again, some event that just took place in childhood alone. It's all a collective. And
Yeah.
So again, let's go back to the brain body balance circuit. You got a brain training, which is the one which I describe in how it helped me overcome anxiety and panic attacks. Now that technology just uses basic sensors that go on the scalp. Basically the sensors are read only, so it's no electroshock therapy. It's just picking up information. It's picking up information to send it to a computer software, and that computer software is calculating your brain patterns, your nervous system in real time, and showing your brain an image of itself. And how it's doing that is through sound audio. So you have a pair of headphones on like these, you're listening to a track, and within that track, you will hear a skip, pause, or interrupt in the music. And you think, man, this CD, this thing is jumping. It's like, no, that's you. That's your brain. Your brain, when your brain drifts off into a state of, let's just call it, for instance, to make it plain for people, is when your brain is going into a pattern, your nervous system is spiking into these states of, like I said, anxiety, fear. Let's just call it fear. It's spiking into a state of fear, or the sympathetic nervous system is activating, is because so that skip or pause is giving that information to your brain. It's not training John per se. It's training your brain, because there are two different beings, right? It's two different entities. So when that happens is once the brain can really become self-aware of what's happening in real time, the brain will say, you know what? We're sitting in a zero gravity chair right now, relaxing. Why are we stuck on, John going down the escalator when he was a kid? Why are we still stuck in that pattern? And the nervous system will start to change itself. So the cool thing is that we're not pushing, pulling, or treating your brain in any way. It's your brain becoming self-aware and making its changes on its own.
Wow.
So people typically come out saying, I sleep better. I'm less reactive to stress. I have the ability to focus and concentrate in a greater way, because all those things are wrapped up again in your nervous system being overwhelmed.
So question, you said that you were able to overcome anxiety and your panic attacks. Do you no longer have them at all?
No.
You don't experience any form of anxiousness at all?
I think anxiousness is it's an emotion. It's a part of life. So yes. Remember I was talking about trauma, right? Like trauma is nothing wrong with trauma. We all experience trauma. The problem is not being able to regulate afterwards.
Right.
So do I experience my range of emotions? Absolutely.
Right.
Anxiety. But am I stuck in it?
Right.
No, I'm not stuck. Before I used to be stuck.
Got you.
So, and two, when I'm experiencing it, I have such a level of awareness now that I know that I'm experiencing it and can change it and reframe it. Like, oh, I'm feeling anxious. And then I had to reframe it. Like, no, I'm not feeling anxious. I'm feeling excited about this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is the whole point. This is the whole point of what we're doing, is you becoming self-aware. It's kind of like Iron Man, right? When Iron Man, he got in his suit is giving him information about everything that's going on with that suit, right? In real time. So Tony Stark can make decisions like, okay, the suit has got this much battery juice. I can't fly because right? The same thing needs to happen for us in our systems. It was like, hey, John, you didn't sleep the last few nights, and you should ask your body's telling you what it needs. Like, you should probably take some magnesium. But see, you would never have that awareness, that you need to do that. How do you have that awareness? Unless you're listening to this biosuit. This is really like a biosuit, to be honest with you. Yeah. It gives you indicators all the time what's going on. So I know you asked that question. You seem kind of surprised when I said no, because most people think they got to live like that for the rest of their life.
Yeah. Well,
like when we get it, like, is it?
Yeah. Well, at first I thought you were referring to not having anxiety anymore. And that's what I was going to ask. Well, it's a normal emotion, but you were referring to actual panic attacks.
Yeah. And again, my anxiety, I had to always reframe. So you always catch me reframing myself because I'm self-correcting myself. Like, I don't like to call it my anxiety. What does that mean? I don't own it. I don't own anxiety. It's an experience, right? It's a pass through.
Yes.
Like breathing. Like, did I own that air I just breathed? Like so so when I talk to Charlamagne, like, bro, you're talking about my anxiety. It's like, it's not your anxiety. It's anxiety, but stop taking ownership. Like let me show you my anxiety. It's right here.
And see, that's so interesting that you even say it like that, because I think even when you reframe it like that, you are letting some of the control and some of the power go, you know, of it in itself. So I think that's very, very powerful that you were referring to. Talk to me a little bit about the float therapy thing. A couple years ago, I actually participated in a float tank. Again, my wife is a psychologist. She's a yoga instructor. She has been the blessing to me in getting me educated on, you know, how everything is connected holistically,
right.
mind, body, and spirit. I was super creeped out by the float tank at first. Like, I'm like, what the hell am I in? Like, what the hell is going on? Like, I'm laying in this water, I'm floating around. Like, what the hell is going on? Right. Literally 20 minutes into it, it was wonderful. You know what I'm saying? I've only done it one time. They don't have any here. They have some in Cleveland and Columbus, which is an hour, 2 hours away from me. But just speak to me a little bit about what those are and the experience of those.
Yeah, so that right there, if people really knew, what this thing does. So, again, somebody brought it to me in 2012. I didn't listen. What is that? Sounds weird. You know, lady told me she's going to a place and they was like doing this immerse therapy, like rebirthing, she called it. I said, rebirthing? What is that? And really, come to find out, she was talking about flotation therapy, but they were calling it rebirthing. And I'm all visualizing somebody getting baptized in some water, like. So I didn't really like dig in.
Float tank ring a little bit better. That
yeah. So I was like, what? You're getting okay. And so then one of my friends came to me some years later. It came to me again. Like, it came to me multiple times. And I was like, man, let me go try this. And for like you, like my first 20 minutes, I was having a panic attack, bro. I'm like, I'm getting out of this thing. This is nuts. Like, why the heck? I mean, everything just spiked. All my emotions just spiked at that moment. And only thing that really kept me in there is my friend who went. I took a date up there, and she was in the other room, and she was floating. And I was like, if I get out of this thing, I'm not going to hear the end of this, man.
Power of women, man. It's just, oh man.
I am not going to hear the end of this. So I decided to keep the door open of the float tank.
Right.
You know, because I was in, and I too, she got to float in a nice, luxurious pod, right? I had this old school float tank that just had this like creepy door on it that had no light in there. Like our tanks are custom built with a glass door on it. They got a light switch that can do chromotherapy with different colors. No, bro, I was in the box. I was in the casket version of the float tank. So I got in, and it had a humidity issue, and I'm like, so I just left the door open, so I cracked it, got some air, closed it, freaked out for a second. But after a while, I sunk into it. And another thing that kept me into is that I read the book, Michael Hutchinson's book, the Book of Floating first. So in the Book of Floating, he was talking about brainwave patterns, and I had already had an education in that and understood stress and trauma. So I saw it as a different tool. He was talking about super learning and breaking free of addiction and reconditioning your mind, you know, all these different things. Because the guy who created it was at the head of the National Institute of Mental Health in 1955. You know, so he created float therapy, and John C. Lilly. So he was considered a fringe scientist, and he was doing a lot of stuff with the float tank. I mean, he was doing psychedelics in the float tank and everything, right? So really exploring his mind. And when I bought my float tank, like it just definitely changed my life. It definitely changed my life. And you know, because I floated 35 days straight for an hour to 2 hours a day.
Wow.
Yeah. And that thing, when you talk about Inception, the movie, like you literally get to go into your mind.
Yeah, you do.
Because people don't understand that when you do affirmations and things of that nature in a beta wave state, meaning that you're alert, you're not able to access your conscious mind.
Hmm.
That's like trying to access the hard drive of your computer, but it's a password onto it.
Hmm.
You know, it's not, you have to add the key to be able to access your mind. And the key is not being in a beta wave state. You have to be, this is what hyper suggestibility and hyper learning comes into when you actually go into what's called the theta wave state. Theta wave state is a slower moving frequency that have to do more with meditation. So when people watch the news at night and they're getting in a very relaxed state and they're watching the news, guess what they're doing? They're programming themselves by what they're listening to because they're hyper suggestible at that moment in time. So when you get into the float tank, I would wait about 20, 30 minutes and I would relax into it. And then I would start asking myself questions.
Wow. Wow.
When I start asking myself questions, then I would have access to my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked one day, I said, where does my anxiety stem from? And then images popped up of relatives, like my mom, my dad, my grandmother. And then I saw that the anxiety that I was experiencing wasn't mine. And I said, it's not mine. I'm like yelling. I heard a yell in my head that is not mine. My body lifted off and splashed back into the water. And I'm like, and I'm sitting there like, again, I'm conscious, but I'm not conscious. But I'm just going with it, right? I'm not resisting what I'm experiencing. And that was one powerful experience, being able to go there, you know. And I've had some amazing experience in the float tank. Joe Rogan is really, he's one of the biggest supporters of flotation therapy. And you know, he says one of the best tool that he's used to develop his mind. And I totally believe him, because again, when I started doing float therapy, it's like, man, everything just started like taking off for me.
Right.
Being in my ability to like I've always had the ability to create what I wanted to do, create in my life, but it just like, it took it to a whole nother level, you know, and again, takes that presence to a whole nother level. Like we talked earlier, the present. That's what happens when you're in a floating. So I always, for people who come in, like if you're listening, do not go to float therapy and look at it as some bucket list item. Don't look at it as, you know, just some, oh, let me get in there and play my music. No. That thing is like, that is one of the most powerful tools, because there's no light, no sound. And the biggest stimulus that we deal with that we don't realize is gravity. And the reason why this is important is to reduce all this stimulation. It's a digital detox now, is because, again, when you're stuck and you have so much garbage, so much overload, Jesus said you can't pour new wine into old wineskins. It's like you can't pour more into a cup that's already filled. You only can have, you got to have an empty cup. You have to be an empty vessel. And when you're in a float tank, you get to empty out all this junk that the world has been telling you. And for us to get in there, the reason why we don't stick with it often is because it's too overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's like, no. Remember I told you about certainty. Oh, where's the overwhelm? That's what I like. I want to sleep with the TV on at night. I want to constantly have stimulation, because now that's become your new way of being. And that's like me going left and walking left, and my brain saying, nope. What's that? What you doing? Right. When you start getting into an environment where there's silence, it's the same thing. But by the third or fourth session, I'm in that thing and I'm quoting Bane, like, man, I was born in the darkness. like I'm in it, you know, and I'm so relaxed in it, and I feel like I'm a Jedi or something at that point. Like, man, I'm like doing some work in here. So yeah, I encourage everybody, if they have access to it, is, you know, go in, and you really want to change your life and improve your life, it ain't through the self-help books. It's through going inward. And one of the best tools that help you go journey inward is flotation therapy.
Yeah, yeah. I cannot remember. I want to say I listened to like Eckhart Tolle.
Eckhart Tolle, yeah, that's my homie, man.
Right prior to going to that float tank, and like I was doing the same thing as you. After the first 20 minutes, affirmations kicked in, you know, and it was wonderful. Now I'm not sure about you, but I'm pretty tall. I'm 6'4", so I'm worried. I'm like, man, how the hell am I gonna fit in this damn tank? And it was perfect, you know. After the initial anxiety and everything like that, man, it was wonderful. So I'm like you, man. I think that it's something that everybody should try for sure.
And you saw that Steph Curry when Steph started floating. I mean, he already had muscle memory from shooting and stuff, but when he added that, it was like the dude was in a video game.
Yeah. And see, a lot of celebrities and a lot of people use these type of, you know, tools and things like that.
Absolutely.
You know, they just don't highlight them that much.
They don't highlight it. And so I wanted to make it where this wasn't some LA thing. This was the thing that we can all have access to, even in regards to our pricing, you know. Like I grouped those circuits into where you do that whole 90-minute circuit and you only pay $99.
Yeah.
You know. So before, my services are much more expensive, and I kept saying I got to normalize this. How do I normalize it in terms of the cost too, where it's still effective, where a person come in and get a certain amount of sessions done and still, you know, didn't break the bank, you know, so to speak.
Now, have y'all still been open during COVID?
No, we've been closed. We're looking at opening in July, but we're kind of slow moving. I'm just kind of like surveying the land right now, even though the governor has given us the ability to open on the 15th, but we're not rushing out there to do it.
Now, have Black people? Have you been seeing Black people really come and join you and check you out, or have we still been kind of slow to get to the table?
So for the first 10 years, now let me say actually first, I'm going on my 14th year. First 12 years, it was mainly white women bringing their husbands and kids in. Like that was mainly my client. And something turned on in us where
consciousness was raised.
Yeah, consciousness was raised. That's a certain turned on, and now it probably in the last 6 months I've seen more people in 13 years, Black people in 13 years. You know, just like we start showing up. You know how it is when we get a hold of something, like we
all in.
We adopt it and we all in. We make it ours. We gonna make it sweet, and that's why it's like, look, I want to make it appealing to us, you know, versus like I didn't want things that look so sterile and like, you know, mental health hospitals and like right. I consider what we do totally outside of the system, right? And there's certain people who are psychologists and psychiatrists and doctors who connect with that. They connect with us, like in our advisory board has that representation of those people because they know they're able to look at the system and know that that stuff don't work as much as, you know, they're saying it does, and it doesn't get to the root. Like I had Dr. Ferguson, who's one of our board members for the mental health advisory board. She's a OBGYN. I met her some years ago, and this was before I had Inception. It was Neuro Fitness Center. I was talking to her about it, and she was like, oh yeah. And she thought it was kind of weird in a way, whatever. Now she's one of our biggest advocates, you know, because she realized that what I was saying at that point in time years ago, probably 5 years ago, is like very true. Yeah. Like talking about stress and trauma and understanding a way to deal with it. Mm-hmm. So now as it goes through the 3 stages of truth, which is, you know, violently opposed, you know, highly ridiculed, and now is becoming widely accepted. And for us as Black people, you know, I think that I've if you look at my 13-year journey, it's like, man, this is like perfect. I was like at the right place at the right time. It's like, no, I had to spend 13 years to wait for us to be ready.
Right.
You know, to wait for us to be ready to say, okay, y'all ready? Let's go. Yeah, this is what we need to do.
I think, man, I'm hoping, and I've gotten this answer from some elders who I've been speaking with, is I think that is going to be our next raise in consciousness as a collective. I think the overall mindset of health and wellness, I think that's our next step. And I think that us being in this moment of COVID and the pandemic, and even George Floyd and everything that's just kind of coming up, I think that is our next step collectively. I think that we are going to take a huge step into making our health and wellness a priority. And I think as we continue to do that as a collective, that's when we really start seeing some real generation.
Yeah, and that's speak about it very intentionally and specific.
Yep.
Is that we got to move past the gym and what we eat, right? Like, okay, it's like the sea moss ain't gonna help your issues that happen when you're in childhood, right? The sea moss and the CBD, like, no, we got to do the work. We got to do the mental, emotional work that those other things is tied to. The obese person is not obese because the food. Like, really, it's not from the food. People say it's the food. No, well, who does the choosing? The food doesn't do the choosing. The food doesn't walk and get into your mouth. You choose what to eat. So why did you make that choice about what to eat or what to overeat? Because we're using everything. Black people, we use stuff as coping mechanisms for our whole life. Even if what we wear, everything that we buy, we want to show people that we have a sense of self, a sense of worth.
That's right.
When that's the total opposite way of trying to do that.
That's right.
You show your sense of self and sense of worth by tapping in to your sense of self to gain your sense of worth.
And what happens is people will be able to see that they're on.
People see that on their own, right? Without you saying, look at my Range Rover, aren't I somebody?
Right.
And it's like, yeah, maybe.
And see, that's just the impact of trauma and oppression for so long, man. We have internalized this sense of worthlessness, and we are trying to, manifest that into these other situations, man. So it's just so important what you're referring to. Listen, man, I want to just say thank you, for coming on here, man. I know your time is limited, man. We're gonna do this again one day, and let's do this.
Well, you want to do a couple more questions? I got time.
Okay, cool, man. We appreciate it, man. We'll talk to me a little bit about just like legacy, like I don't know if you have children, if you plan on having children, like what are your outlooks as far as just where do you want to see what you're doing today play into your family and your people and everything as it relates to legacy going forward?
Yeah, so building for the future generations to again, I want to rebrand mental health and make it appealing and normalized so that 5-10 years from now, you'll talk to people, and if you notice that their emotional intelligence isn't there, you would find that to be an oddity. It's the exact opposite now. Is where the people with the emotional intelligence are the oddity, and the people with pure ignorance are uplifted. If you look at your timeline now, it's like fight the power, selfie, fight the power, selfie. So this awakening that's happening. And so the legacy that I want to leave, regardless if it's for kids or anybody else, is just the idea that the kingdom is within and to look inward.
Love that.
So many people, and the problem is we're so looking for stuff outside of ourselves. We're looking for solutions outside of ourselves. You are the Neo.
Yeah,
absolutely. The Matrix, where the Matrix, she the Oracle, he went to see the Oracle. He said, am I the one? She said, baby, I don't know what you're waiting for, but you know the answer, what I'm going to say. He said that I'm not the one. She said, kid, you got the gift, but you waiting for something. Now, she wasn't even going to tell him that. She wasn't going to tell him he wasn't the one. She let him tell her what he believed about himself.
Right.
And then when he left, he thought he wasn't the one, but it wasn't until he started to understand and start to walk in that path.
Yep.
This is the difference between knowing the path and walking the path.
Yeah, man.
So we have to turn inward and we have to awaken to our own greatness and to our own internal voice. You've been watching the Westworld?
No, I haven't. Mm-mm.
Oh man, you gotta watch
Get
that.
hip. I gotta get hip.
Oh man,
It's amazing.
listen,
I gotta check it out.
you and your wife need to watch that show together.
Really?
Don't look at it because I already know when you watch it and you going I wish I would love to sit and just watch people reactions to this stuff.
Wow.
Because I know you already have a level of awakeness that you're gonna see. You like, holy crap, man.
Oh yeah.
This is us. This is humanity.
I'm checking that out. Westworld.
I didn't listen. It took me years. I couldn't get through the third episode 2 years ago. Then I was like, you know what? During this, I was like, I'm gonna go watch it. And I watched it, man. I was so in it, man. Like,
wow.
It's a mind-blowing Matrix type of Inception type of stuff on this show.
HBO or Showtime? What's it on?
HBO.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So it got 3 seasons now, but that show is really like it's showing us our programming. Like we all programming, and then when do we awaken to it? You know, it's like this, John. It's like I grew up in Detroit, but I moved to South Florida. If I never moved to South Florida, I wouldn't have the same perceptions I do now.
Right.
Like because here it's like we all about, man, we wearing the Cardis. We call them buffs now. We get the Cardis on. Back then it was the Coogee. I remember Coogee and Cardis was a big thing when I was like 17, 18. By the time I moved to 21, Coogee kind of lost his luster. You know how we do. We cycle through stuff.
The sweater's still in though. The sweaters ain't went.
It's still in, but it stuff loses its luster, right?
That's a fact.
So, but I moved to South Florida, and the black dudes there, they wasn't wearing none of that stuff. They didn't care none about that stuff. I was like, man, you got the fresh pair of Jordans on, the fresh pair of Force Ones. Like all that's culture, right? All that's culture, and it's all conditioning. But the bad thing about culture is that we're policed by each other. Hey, John, what type of shoes you got on there, man? What's them, man? How much you pay for them? Man, ain't wearing them cheap shoes. You know what I'm saying? Like all this programming comes out. So I say that all to say is that who are you without the programming? Oh, you're a black guy you got float therapy. I had somebody, they told their boyfriend that about our place. They say, no black guy own that thing. Why? Because we can't see outside of our own lens. Yeah. We only can see what we believe is possible.
And that's why Eckhart Tolle says, when you go outside and you want to notice God, do it without labeling things. So when you see a tree, don't see a tree.
Right.
Just see it as it is.
As it is.
That is experience real presence and experiencing God in its purest form. You know, so I love that.
And so now that you say that, to connect that to something, right? To see a tree. So if you notice, you know, a tree is connected to what? All the time, no matter what. What is it connected to? The ground, the earth. Do you know in the 60s they created synthetic shoes? And when they created that, it disconnected us from the earth. We're supposed to walk barefoot upon the earth.
Wow.
There's over 20 peer-reviewed studies that talk about grounding, aka earthing, where it's showing you that when we connect back to the ground, our central nervous system rebalances itself. Inflammation reduces greatly. The reason being because as you're sitting here right now, there is electrical outlets near you. Well, when you're not grounded, guess what that electricity goes into? It goes into the next conduit but you're ungrounded. So now it's just stuck in your body. So now you having issues sleeping at night. You're having hormonal issues. You're having inflammatory issues because you're ungrounded. So I sleep grounded every night. And I have a grounding bracelet that I wear and a grounding mat. So like even right now I have a grounding bracelet on. So because I don't want those electrical interference getting into my body. Yeah. So we're supposed to be connected. And you think about that. That's just natural. That's just natural occurrence that we just like take for granted.
Right.
Because human beings, we like separate ourselves and we think that, you know, we're high and mighty. It's like, dude, like it's a reason why we supposed to wear that they were wearing like leather shoes. Leather is conductive, so like concrete is conductive too. So you can walk barefoot on concrete and you'll be getting the same benefits of grounding. So
yeah, that's crazy. Listen, man, I got a couple rapid questions that I want to ask you before we get out of here. First and foremost, man, what are your intentions for 2020?
Man, what are they now?
what are they now? What's your
to live, stay alive.
Yeah, that's a
yeah. 2020 definitely is the year of inception, regardless of all the COVID stuff. Like this is a setup year for us because we needed people to be aware, first of all, that they need to go to a mental health gym. Right? Because before people's issues, out of sight is out of mind. Because it's not a physical injury, we don't think of it as the same way, so really 2020 for us is about just laying more of the framework for that. When 2020 hits, man, we got all our ducks in a row. We're already working on franchising, working on our educational platform, working on our marketplace, because we're gonna have products and everything. Like over the last 13 years, you gotta think I learned a lot in 13 years that a lot of people don't know, specifically in our culture, that we can turn them on to, but also make that very appealing to them. So our goal is to continue to educate and then to have the experience that people can come into our gyms and have that experience and go home and be blown away by it,
Yeah. What is your purpose and how is that connected to what it is you're doing today?
My purpose is to be happy and to create. I keep it very broad like that because now when I'm in a state of happiness and in a state of creation, what can I create? I can create a lot of different things, but I want to have fun in my life. I want to enjoy my life. Oftentimes I think people think about their purpose and they make it this, I'm going to be a missionary and all this, like that all is cool and stuff. But, I want to be able to create opportunities for people and myself. I want to continue to help people to be able to do the same, to find their voice and their purpose. See, that's why you got to watch Westworld, because now I keep having these things, flashbacks in my mind pop up. Man, I got a part of the thing that just popped up. Like you have to, and it's in that show. All these voices that we hear, you got to find yours in there. And I used to think, now that I used to hear that statement from people, but now I can see that statement through my own lens. And I'm like, man, they're so right. They're so right. It's so much noise. I'll say there's one last thing. If you think about it, John, you've been guided your whole life. Your whole life, you've been guided by a voice. And when you listen to that voice, it's always right. When you don't listen to that voice, man, you kicking yourself like, why I go against what I knew, right? And once you really start to make a distinguish between your voice, culture's voice, parents' voice, leaders' voice, it's like, but what is your voice saying? And every culture has the Holy Spirit, your higher self. That's your voice. Some people may call that consciousness, or it's whatever you want to call it, is there and it's guiding you. And watch that show, because we're gonna stay connected, and you're gonna see that part, and you're gonna come back. You're gonna say, Dave, man, I saw it. I saw it. Actually, you know what? It's on my Facebook page. I posted it. It didn't get as much traction because I don't think a lot of people really could see. I'm gonna tag you in it, so I want you to just watch that one little clip. But it's like, it's the truth, man.
I'm gonna check it out. I'm already on it, man. As soon as we get done here, I'm texting my wife, yo, Westworld.
Binge that, boy. Binge that. I promise you will not be you won't be disappointed.
Cool. What is something about you that people will be surprised to know?
I cuss a lot. You know what, man? Recently, I asked somebody during this whole thing. I said, you know what? Why do we hide in plain sight? Like, why? I said, why do I got to keep hiding, man? I said, why? I said, and the thing is, growing up, like, what age did you start swearing? Like,
yeah,
and we
I'm cussing early, man. I ain't gonna lie.
and I swear around my parents now. I used to didn't, but now I do, because it's like, yo, I don't want to keep suffocating the way that I'm trying to express myself, because really swear words to me is about expression of my emotion. I'm using it in a way to, one, shock you, to shock you out of a pattern, and to allow my emotions to really to dissipate.
Right.
So I do it a lot, and I do it purposely. I'm very intentful with my swearing, you know, because I'm trying to shake people up. Like,
I respect that.
And then, you know, I think too, I got that from probably Tony Robbins, man. I mean, you look at Anthony Robbins. I'm like, man, Anthony Robbins swear a lot, but the dude is very effective in helping people to shift.
Intentional.
Yeah. You know, I'm not just swearing just cause. It's like, it's very intentional what I'm doing. So I would say that. And to that, and a lot of people know I dance now. I dance salsa, bachata.
Yeah, you a salsa dancer now. Yeah, that's what's up.
Yeah. So a couple years ago, I wasn't a salsa dancer.
Okay.
And my brain, when I started dancing, my brain was like, dude, what you doing? Now I can't. Now I learned something that I would not stop doing for the rest of my life.
Wow.
You see how you get enriched with things when you actually, you know, allow yourself to be goofy looking and you know, have no judgment of, you're going to fail at it in the beginning. That's just, you're going to fail at doing something you don't know how to do. We've been conditioned that you got to come out and do it perfect from day one. Like, how would I ever do that? It's my first time doing it. And then we feel bad. We feel embarrassed.
Right.
So, dancing is amazing. I definitely recommend all Black men to learn how to dance. It will enrich your life.
Okay, all right.
Learn how to dance with your wife, brother. It will enrich. It's free dates.
I'm picking up gyms here. I'm all over. Westworld dancing. I'm all over. Yeah. Okay.
Grounding. Right. Got to make sure you ground.
Yeah.
Make sure you clean up your water, your drinking water. Let me tell you, all these things, you're not just doing them just cause. You're gonna like really see all the books you read, the spiritual books and all that. It comes to life inside your body. You feel it. You're like, wow, yeah, this is amazing.
What scares you?
What scares me? Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have anything off the top of my head that scares me. I obviously uncertainty, really the unknown. It just, you know what? I would say this, like loved ones passing away, like my parents. Like one day we got to go through that.
Yeah, that's it.
You know, and that is a big fear of mine, you know, and that's something that I constantly kind of like, you know, process, because especially as a COVID situation, I've seen people's parents pass away and what that looks like for you after the fact.
Right.
You know, so I try to, David Data has the book, The Way of the Superior Man. He talks about living
wonderful book,
as if your father has passed away.
Yep.
And for years, you know, I had really dug deep and did that, because remember, I started with my business with my dad, and I kept looking for him for, hey, what do you think we should do? Then I got to the point where maybe about 5-6 years in, man, where I stopped asking him, and I just started doing stuff on my own. Like, okay, I'm not even asking you. I'm just making moves and doing what I need to do. And that's when the business grew, when I just started doing what I need to do. But he's a support system in the back. You know, and I always kind of felt guilty for having good parents, you know, like, man, I'm feeling guilty because the image for the Black culture is that we all single parent households, and that's so not the truth.
Yeah. And with that, just because you got good parents don't mean y'all don't go through shit.
Yeah, just because, listen, the ACE study, the adverse childhood effect experience, shows you that the kids who had the trauma, all this trauma and all, they had all these symptoms pop up from experiencing trauma. The people in that study were all like suburban white kids. Yep. Like, just because you have good parents don't mean you don't experience trauma. Like, or that you done bad things, because we always minimize other people's stuff too. Oh, yours ain't as bad as mine.
Yeah.
Like, no, my experience is still my experience in my body. My brain doesn't know your experience was not as bad as hers. My body doesn't go through that process. Well, your body, it's not bad as John, so you're okay.
Right.
No.
Right. 100%. What's the best advice you ever received?
You can't have it all at once, buddy. That's what a mentor told me, man.
Okay.
That's when I was anxious, and he came and had a talk with me. He said, buddy, you can't. He just always called it buddy. You can't have it all at once.
Okay.
And basically saying, because I was anxious to get to make the money and anxious to do all the stuff. It's like, you're anxious to have the girl and anxious, it's like, because again, you're conditioned about when you have this stuff, things will feel better. It's like, no, when you do the work, things will feel better. Then you get to experience the stuff.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you so right about that. What's your favorite book?
Power of Intention.
Never. Who's the author?
Wayne Dyer. Dr.
Okay.
Wayne Dyer.
Okay.
So Wayne Dyer, Power of Intention, and then it was The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle. So a few of my books: Power of Intention, Power of Now, Awakening the Giant Within, Anthony Robbins. So those three books, and How to Know God by Deepak Chopra. That book, I mean, you ever read books and then like 5 years later, you're like, man, I now understand what that book was talking about.
100%.
Like I think the New Earth of Eckhart Tolle, I read like 3 chapters, and it's still taking me that long to like process with like I'm still processing. So that's why I don't get into so much like reading 100 books a year. It's like, it's not about how many books you read. It's about how much you've able to process and to integrate into your life.
And apply it. That's right.
Yeah.
That's so right. Listen, if you could pick up the phone and call your 20-year-old self, knowing what you know today, what would you tell yourself?
These type of questions, I wouldn't tell myself anything, because then it would alter my life.
Is that cheating?
Man, it's like this, man. Like if I tell myself something or give myself advice, that changes the trajectory of everything. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, some of the stuff wouldn't exist. Yeah. Some of my experience would disappear. Some of the people I met wouldn't. So, I don't have regrets like that.
Yeah.
I don't have regrets in my life where I'm like, man, you should have did this. Because again, back to that, all things work together towards my good. That's a biblical verse, right? Mm-hmm. So that means that even when I do mess up, it still works for me, right?
Right.
So ask the bodybuilder, hey, what would you do differently? What you still had to go in there and lift them weights and create that resistance. You had to still go through all the trials and the tribulations to get to that point. So what, you want to trade one trial for the other? Pain is going to be pain.
That's right. Right. That's right.
So that's where I'm at with that.
Okay. All right. Okay. We'll take that. Well, listen, man, tell everybody your website, social media tags, where they can find you, how to get in contact with the gym and everything like that.
So you can find us on, one of the biggest ways that we educate people is through Instagram, through my Instagram and through the business Instagram. So my Instagram
I've been following you on Instagram, man. You've been having a real response to these brands trying to have Black Lives marketing going on right now. I feel you. I'm with you.
Yeah. That man, that stuff is like.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Listen, last thing, you can't. We're part of a narcissistic system, and we're codependent, asking the narcissist to heal us and help us.
Yeah.
What do you ever experience somebody, or you experience yourself being in a narcissistic relationship? They can't see and they can't help you.
Yes, we are in an abusive relationship.
We're in an abusive relationship, and we want the abuser to heal us.
It don't work that way.
No, we have to separate ourselves. I am done complaining about a system that was not built for me. I want to create my own system that takes that system over.
That's right.
Akon over there building a city, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. No game.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need to collectively take our ball and go home. Y'all don't want to play with us. We gonna take our ball and go home, and then see how much you suffering that point.
Mm-hmm.
But we collectively we scared,
That's
because
right.
of monetary issues and uncertainty. So
Yeah, we are the asset. Always
we
have.
are we
Always
are the
have.
asset, man, bro. If you look at it, like, the world revolves around not just Black culture, but African American culture.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
The world. Look at Michael Jordan, man. That whole documentary, that it was the whole world was watching that thing.
It stopped time. It stopped time. That's what's so. And nobody has an experience like the African American experience. Nobody. Nobody.
Because we experience post-traumatic stress, but now we're going to start experiencing post-traumatic growth.
I love
Because
that.
all of that pain, all of those years, bro, that wasn't nothing but building us, man. And we about to transform into something
Yes,
you've
sir.
never seen
Yes,
before.
sir.
That's
Yes,
what
sir.
happens when there's so much resistance. That's why you go to the gym. I need 300, 400 pounds on there, lifting. It's the trauma
Yeah.
that builds you. Your muscles are traumatized to
Yeah.
come back stronger. We just needed to break through, and we're breaking through. So yeah, man, like, no, we are the Neo. And like I said, when we when we get a hold of something, man, we take it to the whole next level.
That's right. That's right. Well, listen,
So
man.
Mr. David McCullar, I_am_Inception for the Inception page.
Cool, wonderful. Well, listen, man, we're gonna leave it there, Dave. Man, thank you so much, man. I can't appreciate it. Thank you enough, man. This has been wonderful. We're gonna do this again. Let's do it in person. I'm definitely coming up there to the facility, man, to check you guys out, man. I really want to, see what you guys got going on. Listen, the last thing I have my guests do. The name of the podcast is called the Live Your Purpose Podcast. I am a podcast junkie and fanatic. And one of my inspirations for this podcast. His name is Arian Foster. He is a ex-NFL player. He retired very early. He used to play running back for the Houston Texans and the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, Arian follows me. He knows about Inception. Yep.
Wonderful. Well, listen, he is one of my inspirations in starting this podcast. He started one called the Now What Podcast. I don't think he does it too much anymore. He's doing a lot of things creatively and doing things with music. But one of the things I do is I have my guests lobby for him to get on his show, to get on my show. On his show, he would have his guests lobby for Jim Carrey to come on his show. So one of the ways that I kind of like just pay homage, and just doing something cool, man, is by having them lobby to get him on my show. So if you could, man, just look in your camera and tell Arian why he should be on the Live Your Purpose podcast.
Arian, brother, you already know about Inception. You already heard about it. We need more Black men like John with the type of podcast that he has. So we need you to get onto his show and to drop your story on his show so that the world can know about you and his podcast. So, brother, we're going to make it happen. We're going to get you on here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Listen, man, Dave, thank you again, man. Again, everybody, please stay safe. Practice social distancing. I don't give a damn if they tell you the world is opening up. Stay home. Take care of your mental health. Love your loved ones. Practice your self-care. This is another episode of the Live Your Purpose podcast. We are out.